This session is in partnership with the Global Citizen Forum, and as a longtime programming partner of Concordia, the Global Citizen Forum plays a vital role in ensuring a more interconnected world. We are delighted to work with the Global Citizen Forum to promote important conversations on economic resilience, mobility, the role of innovative financing in ushering in socioeconomic impact, and more on a global level. To get involved with the Global Citizen Forum, please do check out the newsfeed on the main event page for opportunities to tap into GCF's innovative platform. You can also check out the sponsor and partner tab that I mentioned earlier. And with that, I am very pleased to welcome back to Concordia Armand Arton, a good friend and supporter of Concordia, president and CEO of Arton Capital, and the founder of Global Citizen Forum, as well as James Ireland, senior advisor of Covington and Burling, Yvonne Manzi Makolo, chief executive officer of Rwanda Air, and Zephanie Niyonkuru, deputy CEO of Rwanda Development Board. Armand, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for having me, and it's always a pleasure to be part of the Concordia family and Concordia experience. Even digital, your reach out around the world is phenomenal, and we're very happy to partner with you on this topic. Welcome to my colleagues on this panel. Again, a short introduction about the Global Citizen Forum and Arton Capital. Over the last 10 years, we have created the non-profit arm of Arton Capital called the Global Citizen Forum in order to really focus on impacting the world's benefit from human mobility. Everything from migration to security to improving trade and economic and social development that comes, as well as security challenges, migrations, and refugees. So we're very excited to have you on this panel because we believe that the African continent is about to implement a very important element in terms of mobility. This is the African Union Passport Initiative, launched about 5 years ago, hasn't yet rolled out as expected and as soon as expected. But I think that the positive elements of what this could mean for trade, for economic developments, air travel are phenomenal. So again, I would like to start with Jay, with Mr. Ireland, to over many decades of experience in Africa. I think you are very well positioned to tell us the barriers of freedom of movement, how this impacts foreign investments in Africa, and is it easier to do business in this continent compared to other, considering all the visa restrictions that exist and that many African countries don't have embassies around the world and still don't have an e-visa system, which implies a very hard to get process, which stops business development.
Yeah, thanks, Armin. Good to see everybody. I guess, you know, as I look at my time when in Africa running General Electric, the movement of people and goods was very difficult, and we're going to continue to see that going forward for a couple of reasons. One is the soft movement, which is mostly people, but then the other one is hard goods, etc. That really relies on good infrastructure, which, you know, when you look at rail, roads, etc., railroads as well as roads and highways, that still needs a lot of investment and a lot of continued improvement. Along with that is you have on goods a lot of friction at borders. Even with open borders in the EAC as an example, there's still a lot of friction at each one of the borders. This is all pre-COVID, obviously. COVID presented a whole nother issue. But I think the aspect of also tied into, and Yvonne, it'll be interesting to hear her thoughts, but air travel as well. You know, there aren't the airport, depending on countries and trying to travel around, there aren't that many flights available to really go intercontinental, and that's continued to improve, but still is an issue. From a people standpoint, the visas are somewhat problematic, more from a standpoint of, can you get, as a business person, more than a one-trip visa? Can you get a multiple year? Can you do things so it's easy to go back and forth, do meetings, etc.? Most countries have that, but it has been difficult to get and all. I can't it's hard as an American to sit there and complain about visa processes for anybody else. So I'm not there doing that, that's for sure. But I think the aspect of within Africa, having the ability for business people to really utilizing, especially now the airline networks, to really travel around the continent is key. And I think the one thing that from my perspective that we did a lot of is we transferred a lot of our people between countries. So we would have, you know, we were headquartered in Kenya, but we had big operations in South Africa, Nigeria, Angola, et cetera. And I wanted to transfer people to get different experiences. And if somebody that was Kenyan was going to go work in South Africa, they fundamentally gave up their passport for almost 6 months while the work visa was being processed. That person, that executive then couldn't travel, was stuck in, and now we're used to this with Zoom, et cetera, COVID, but back then we weren't. And I think that's some of the things that we need to think about is how can we make this system a lot easier for businesses that do want to promote trade, that do want to promote continued growth and really drive economic change. So it's slowly improving. And I think, again, another aspect that I've heard from a friend and an executive, Aliko Dangote, says he needs, as a Nigerian, fundamentally to get more visas than I did as an American. And so within Africa, whether this AU passport process works will be absolutely key as well. Because I think it's making sure that you can be mobile across the continent as you continue to drive business.
Thank you, Jay. Indeed, we have a tool called the Passport Index, which actually measures the mobility of each passport and the passport around the world. And unfortunately, the US passport, as you know, in a post-COVID hasn't performed very well. It has about 40% of its mobility. Of course, this is temporary, and it doesn't reflect the visa-free agreements between countries, which are the normal standards, you know, IATA and ICAO measures of mobility between countries. But to get back to some of your comments, you're absolutely right. I think that the moving from physical visa to e-visa and digital visa, which will not allow and require somebody to be stuck 6 months, as you mentioned, because his passport is in process, but will speed up the whole administration of mobility and issuance of e-visas that will spur the mobility in the continent. Mr. Niyonkuru, if you can tell us a little bit about this initiative of Passport Index and how this plays into the conversation of development of Rwanda Bank as well as African Development Bank. Both entities have said in the past when this was launched that this will have enormous economic impact on the continent. Tell us a little bit more. What do you think about it?
You're on mute.
Mr. You're on mute, yeah.
Thank you very much. As we talk about the mobility across Africa, it's very important that people be able to travel with ease and also not spend more resources and time requesting for visas and so on. So, as you actually mentioned, the AU passport was launched. That was back in 2016, but of course it hasn't reached to so many people, and it hasn't really showed some of the positive profits or the benefits that were expected. But again, it's getting there. As Jay mentioned, there have been really quite a number of difficulties in terms of an African or someone who is in one country moving to the other. In some cases, you may need to move from country A to country C, but you have to go to country B first of all to get the visa, which will take you to country C. So with the passport that has been introduced, and also taking it into the context of the free continental trade agreement that has been signed, though of course there have been some sort of delays in terms of the actual implementation due to COVID. We believe that this will really be some of the key ingredients that will be having an add-on in terms of the intra-Africa trade activities. If you look into the state of the trade activities in Africa, you really have Africa doing a lot of transactions with the rest of the world considered to what is done with the countries in Africa themselves. So we believe that as the people are able to move freely, that's number one, and two, as they are able also to benefit from initiatives like Africa Free Trade Agreement, they be able to open business overseas, internationals will be able to expand into other countries, and also benefit from some of the agreements that are being signed, like double taxation agreements, which really will be helping investors not to pay twice. So that's why I consider the passport as one of the initiatives that will keep boosting movement of people, which again have positive repercussions on trade and investment activities.
Thank you, Zephanie. Madam Makolo, as a CEO of Rwanda Air, I guess you are an expert more than all of us in terms of mobility, and how do you see the world in a post-COVID area where normal travel will return? How much do you think that the average consumer's mobility is correlated with economic development? I mean, your country, for example, Rwanda, has on the passport index openness score 198, which means that you're open, everybody can enter your country without visa. There's a clear correlation with maybe development of the country and openness in terms of access. How this translates into mobility and travel there?
Thank you, Armand. Well, to begin with, speaking from the aviation, on the aviation side, the current pandemic definitely has taken us several steps back. It was Africa as a continent was greatly underserved. Jay has mentioned how difficult it is to travel within the continent. With the COVID now, a lot of airlines have shrunk their networks as well. So it's become a bigger challenge to move from point A to point B. But the positive part is that being underserved and given the size of the continent, 1.2 billion people, and the fact aviation really is the solution in terms of mobility of people and goods within the continent. However, there are a number of challenges which need to be addressed for it to be fully maximized. A lot has been said about the visa regimes in different countries. You mentioned Rwanda being open, which is also helping the economic development of the country. We can see pre-COVID how tourism has grown within the country, conference tourism as well. The growth of the horticultural sector, since it's much easier now to transport exports out of the country and bring imports into the country. So aviation has played a really important role in terms of the economic development of the country, and it's a strategic pillar of that. But in order for all the other African countries to really benefit as well, a number of challenges have to be addressed. In addition to the visa regime, we need to the high costs of doing of operating airlines within the African continent. The high taxes, especially. Aviation is still seen as a luxury where some countries can really maximize on the taxes, which makes the ticket prices shoot up. We also have a number of challenges in terms of infrastructure, especially airports in different African countries, which need to be worked on as well. But I believe that once all these challenges are addressed, and it makes it easier for Africans to move from point A to point B point A to point C without going through point B, as Zephanie mentioned. We'll really see the continent opening up economically, and especially with the implementation of the African CFTA. So there is a lot of potential. There's still a lot of hope to get through this challenging of COVID. Hopefully, in the next year or 2 years, we'll see the full potential of mobility within the continent.
Thank you, Yvonne. I appreciate, and I agree with you that in the long term, the prosperity of the continent depends on the mobility, intra-Africa and external as well. Some of the, and that's a question open to all of you, some of the skeptics on the African Union passport are evoking, of course, security issues that exist with, opening the borders completely. What is your opinion on that? Compare the positive impact in terms of trade and economic development versus security risk. Which one is more important to the future of the African continent?
Well, I can go ahead. I think the issue of security is something that can be managed, whether it's investing in advanced passenger information, so where you're able to get all the details of the passengers before they arrive in the country, and you're able to mitigate any risks that may arise. But I think the positive part, just opening up the country to people and goods moving in freely, that really overrides the security issue, which, as I mentioned, can be managed. And we've seen that in Rwanda, opening up completely security. It's one of the safest countries in the world, I would say.
Thank you. Jay?
Well, I think, always have to balance that, the security versus open borders. But I think within if you have, if you will, levels that you would allow people to come through or goods, et cetera. And I think that can be managed, as Yvonne said, the systems today from a standpoint of tracking and understanding who is traveling, et cetera, is very, very well advanced and continuing to become more and more advanced. So I think the aspect of shutting the borders does inhibit trade and inhibit basically that country to be able to grow, because you need it both ways, whether you're exporting or importing. And I think that's whether it's people or goods. And I think that this continued traction of both is absolutely key. So I think it's a balance. I think it can be managed, as Yvonne said, but the countries have to invest in that kind of infrastructure, similar to what Rwanda has done. And I would say not everyone has done that yet. So that's part of the issue.
Thank you. And Zephanie, any final comments on what do you believe the private sector sees the same benefits as the governments of this initiative?
Yeah, correct. The private sector sees the benefits of this particular initiative. And, from public sector point of view, first of all, it comes back to the leadership of the public sector to lead the implementation of all of these good initiatives. Because, as you know, there have been other good initiatives, or other commercial or regional blocks that are, operational. If you come to East Africa, you have, for example, the East Africa Community. The other parts of Africa have SADC, you have COMESA, and so on and forth. But it comes back to the leadership of individual countries in terms of adhering to the principles or to what is agreed upon. So that's number two. The private sector definitely, we benefit from these kind of initiatives. If you look into some of the promotion activities that we are involved in every time, some of the key things that investors look at is, if I do business, let's say in Rwanda, and I want to export, how is it easy for me to export? How is it easy for me to do the trading activities across borders? Or if I have, let's say, a company that is based in Joburg or Nairobi, and I want to expand it to other countries, how will I be able not only to repatriate capital when there need to be, or if I'm doing my consolidated financial statements or reporting, how do I make sure that it becomes easier for me? So all of these initiatives will benefit the members of the private sector, and they will really help multinationals to expand across several countries, across Africa, which will again help us to reach what INEC has been projecting when this pre-continental trade agreement was signed, where it was projected that actually this would even lead to intra-Africa trade being able to grow by 52%.
One of the things that was an interesting to Zephanie's point is we had a program with Carnegie Mellon University in Rwanda, where we, they had students there, and we wanted to do internships for those students during summer breaks, etc. And we had trouble getting the
Are you on mute?
No, I'm
We
not.
can't hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can hear you well.
We had a program with Carnegie Mellon University in Rwanda, and part of that was we would provide internships for them, for the students, for a period of time across some of the countries we operated in, and we had a hard time getting those students the ability to basically do an internship because of the visa, again, the requirements that were by country. And again, this was a training capability that we were providing. Again, and it wasn't all Rwandan students, it was Kenyan students in Rwanda, et cetera. So it all depended. And I think that those are the kind of things, building that base will be important to really continue to drive employment for youth and economic growth.
Thank you, Jay. Indeed, we believe as well at Global Citizen Forum and Arton Capital that whether it is the migration of humans or the migration of ideas, the mobility has the power to really spark innovation, to uncover immense potential and facilitate the adaptation in order to face the challenges that we're facing today. And the future of the African continent, I believe, really goes through this initiative, which we believe that 2021 will be start rolling over beside the diplomats to reach out the citizens, the ordinary passport holders, and we hope in the next 10 years to see that impact. Thank you, everybody, for your time and input. It was a pleasure to host you, and look forward to see you around on the next live edition of Concordia, hopefully in New York, the following session of September. Thank you. Have a nice day. Stay safe.
Thank you, Armand.